Welcome to Deep Thought. All subcultures have an energy. Yeah, you know what? The other day, I was at it was a festival in Baltimore called Happy Nappy Day, right? And it usually has it's focused on black women who have embraced their natural hair, right? And they have vendors, they have a little bit of food. I was kind of disappointed in the food this year. Not as much, but food, and then they have some entertainment and stuff. And one of the things with it is not so much the energy, but the type of people there, particularly the type of black people. Now, you had more of the conscious, or woke. I guess that's the term now. But not just that, because some people call themselves woke just because they know something, but just in terms of lifestyle, you had a lot of African spiritualists there. I had a lot of people on some form of Rastafarianism, maybe some black nationalists through there, and and it's a different energy, it's a different vibe, right? And there was one point I bought something from a woman, and I could tell from the name of her company, some of the tattoos she had on, that she practiced an African traditional religion. So I just said, does this, I specifically said, does Oshun have your head? And anybody who practices Ifa know what I'm saying. I don't feel like explaining it to those who don't, but I said, does that have your head? And she said, no, not yet. But then it was interesting. A woman that was right beside her said, no, you might not have been formally initiated, but Oshun does have your head. And it was an interesting conversation, but it wasn't so much as that, but it was just the subcultural nuance and also the energy. Like, the energy there was just totally peaceful. Because I've been in situations when you might have another set of black folks, maybe more attuned to the street culture, where the energy might have been a little not as peaceful, a little bit, you on your guard a little bit more and everything, right? And then still, I've been around another set of black people who, are more upper middle class, and that energy would have been something totally different, even as far as looks and everything. It's one of the things. Now, as people who follow me for a long time know, I've always studied subcultures, but it's interesting to see like different symbols, but also to feel the energy. It's a different thing. Your body feels different with different groups. I think that's the best way of looking at it, right? Your body feels different, even and that's not just in the black community, As people know, I went to San Diego last week, and it was interesting, the difference in, the West Coast energy and the East Coast energy, but really even in the difference in white people. Like, I know there's some black people who just see all white people as one monolithic group, but I was like, no. In fact, to me, in my opinion, you can see the subcultures and class distinctions even more sharply with the white community, right? Because one thing in the black community, and I have to shout out Master Teacher BGS when I was talking about subcultures one time, he made an interesting point that in the black community, ours flow together more. There's more of an energy. It's like ours flow together more, and you really have to be really astute to pick them out, and sometimes you really can't. Because you could easily have someone who's on some thug life shit, with some Akan tattoos. It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. It's like one of those things, if I had to explain Akan, then, well, I won't explain that one. But anyway, right? People who know, right? But anyway, get back to the whites. It was interesting the energy between the whites in San Diego and on the beach and everything, and the ones like where I live. Now, I've always said I live in a fairly affluent area. Like the median income is nearly 100,000. So you got some nice houses, people with money. But it's more, to me, the energy is more like an energy of maybe working class types who like made it to manager. Maybe like worked at a auto plant, or like they own the plumbing thing. It's still like a blue collar type energy, but you see it's you might see more tattoos, a little bit more rough hewn on this side, but it was like a different type of energy there, more affluent type of energy, at least in the parts that I was in. And I'm sure they got that same type of more rough hewn energy in San Diego. I just didn't go to those sections. But it's just interesting, like feel how you feel. It's like some neighborhoods you can walk through, you feel totally safe, you feel comfortable, looser. Other neighborhoods you're like, boom. I've even noticed that because that's one of the things I've noticed in the difference between the energy of the upper middle class, even affluent, or even the few times I've encountered children of the the 1%, and somebody who might come off, grew up in a poor neighborhood. There's even a difference in energy between maybe I'll use whites as an example, or poor white who grew up around mostly whites, and even quote unquote rednecks, and then a poor white that grew up around blacks. It's a very distinct look, energy, everything. And you know what? It's all fascinating to me. And one of the things that speaks to that subcultures, class differences, social groups, is deeper than just saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a member." Your energy changes, your look changes, right? There's been some authors I've read about, maybe 3 authors. One was someone in the Atlantic magazine. He was talking about the upper class. One was Charles Murray, who, in his book Coming Apart, I forgot the subtitle, but it was about how basically white America is going down. And then this gentleman who's running for president, Andrew Yang. And it's interesting how they describe the upper class, And they use the words beautiful, slim, stuff like that. And it's a different energy. It's a different energy. And then you shift that to people who might not be at that level. It's a different thing. It's a physical thing. Like one of the things I see, and I've talked about this in the coming caste system, I actually see that. It's like, and I know most people, they just see what they see. But one of the things when I'm looking at something, I also look below the surface. I take that hood up and I say, all right, what's going on down here? And it's part of the reason why some people have trouble once they get caught into a certain way of thinking, a certain class. It's hard for them to get out of it, because then they will have to change their energy. It's hard for somebody who grew up. Well, it'd be hard. I think it'd be easier for somebody who grew up poor to adapt to a more affluent environment. It'd be hard, but it'd be easier than someone from an affluent environment to be thrown in a poor environment. A lot of times people can't handle it, especially if they're older. It's like if they're a child, they can handle it easier. But if they're older, they really can't. But it's deep, though. It is deep. If you really look at it energetically, you can tell differences. You can actually feel it. You can actually say something. Like I knew somebody who had visited me when I lived in a different part of a less affluent part of the county I'm in. And I never specifically remember he said he could feel the shift in energy once he came through certain parts. Right, and it's some deeper science there too, but I won't get into it here. But anyway, right, As always, y'all know how I do on this channel. Just giving y'all something to think about. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.